In earlier videos, I talked about how a battery pack consists of more than just batteries. In addition to the batteries or the cell modules, we find other components in here. It contains what BMW calls a safety box, which is essentially a pre-charged circuit. It also has a BMS, and it may have some sort of a heat management or thermal management system. In this case, BMW, the battery pack. So there are some evaporators on each side here. What we're concerned with today is the wiring harness of the BMS. I want to extract that and do it on camera because it appears like it's tangled in and intertwined with the harness that goes to the BMS, and a little bit of it actually that goes to the heat management system. So I want to unravel that. Now, because I had some technical difficulties when trying to film this video, I already started to unwrap some of this harness, but we'll try to catch up to where I was. So what I have done so far is that I used some blue tape and a Sharpie here just to label the connectors that went to the BMS slave modules. So I have here module 1, which was on the bottom, module 2 was in front of it, and module 3 was on top. Over on this side, I had module 4, which was on top, module 5, which was in the front, and module 6, which was on the bottom. First, let's start out by removing this front connector. This is the main connector. So it's held on by 4 screws. Here we have it. It's out. I'm going to flip the pack around so that you can see the BMS, master BMS module. Okay, it is held on by 2 10mm screws. And it's out. Now we don't need this. Actually, we can't use it. We're going to have to use a third-party BMS, such as SIP BMS or something else. Maybe Orion. I'm not sure if Orion makes a version that will work with these. So I'm going to flip the pack back around and start on the wiring harness. One of the reasons I'm doing this on camera is to show you the benefit of using a smaller, lighter pack. I doubt we could do this with a Tesla pack or a Nissan Leaf pack. Now, I'm not saying this one is better or the other ones are better. It's just something to keep in mind. This pack provides what I call full voltage of 350 volts, just as the other packs, but I think at the fraction of the size. so what we're after is the BMS wiring harness, which seems to be co-joined with the harness for the safety box, a little bit of the harness for the heating system here. And I want to unwrap all that and separate them and see what's what. So after removing this main connector or main plug, we see straight away that there is a ground strap here. So I'll use socket. Okay. As I was unwrapping this wiring, I saw there's this cylinder here. This is like a metal tube. Maybe difficult to see. I'll do some close-ups, pictures. But I don't know what this is. To me, it looks like maybe a 2.5-inch spacer that's about 3/16 thick all the way around. And we know that electricity and magnetism go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly. So maybe this has something to do with preventing interference or something like that. I really have no idea. If you do, please comment and let me know. Alright, now I could use a box cutter and just start cutting this tape. I like to unwrap it. I'm less likely to cut through the wire. I do plan on getting messy and sticky. This tape has a lot of adhesive residue, or leaves a lot of adhesive residue, but I'm taking one for the team here. Okay, so continuing on, I'm trying to get some separation here between maybe what wiring goes to the safety box and what wiring goes to the slave boards. So yes, this is a mundane process. Looks like we sort of found some branches here. This here looks like this is the slave BMS portion, and then this here looks like it's running to, we don't know yet, we'll see. So I think in a prior video, I mentioned that 12 volts, I believe, comes into this main plug on the outside. But then, after it hits the master BMS module, I'm sure there's voltage regulators in there because only 5 volts continue on to the slave, BMS slave port slave modules. So that's, I'm not sure if that's one of the reasons or the only reason why we don't plug into the front here to get some, plug in the BMS. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but that's one of the differences. trained on trying to get this all unwrapped. All the wires coming off of the, what I call the gray plug, and that they run to the main plug in the front of the battery pack. I will share close-up pictures of what I have here. And then we'll keep on wrapping it and follow it all the way down. Now, this is what we're really interested in, is this blue connector. So one of the reasons I'm doing this is because I'm not going to use this box, okay? It's really odd shaped. I'm not a big fan of it. And I'm putting this in a truck, a 1971 GMC, technically an old Chevy truck. And by undoing all this tape here, and it will allow me to maybe reroute the wiring for the BMS a little bit, because I think I'm going to make my battery pack be more of a rectangular or a squarish shape and not this what I call saddlebag design or look. And also I just like to know what the wiring does, where it runs. I hate it where wires disappear into what I call a black hole. You know, sometimes I've noticed, having done some wiring, that you may have a yellow wire going into something and then it gets spliced and you can't find it coming out. Well, when you undo all the tape, you'll find out it's switched colors and now it's, you know, pink or blue or something like that. And I'm not talking about somebody's hokey aftermarket job. I'm talking about it's like that from the factory. I'm looking at you, GM. Anyway, so I just like to undo it, and it's kind of brain dead work, but I don't mind that. Well, my fingers are super sticky already. I know I should have worn gloves, but I just don't get the dexterity that I need to undo all this tape with gloves on. So I'm just taking one for the team here, and I will try to get this goo off the wiring and my hands. If you know of anything that removes it, you know, the stickiness, I've heard of Goo Gone or something like that. I've heard of guys saying that WD-40 works. I have some mineral spirits in the garage. I'm going to try that. But if you know of something, please comment and let me know. This is really annoying. This piece is just stuck. Okay. So here I have the main plug, and I think what's happening here, I'm going to guess, is that it's splitting into two runs, okay, from this blue plug that plugs into the main BMS master module. I think there's two branches. It just branches out like in a Y. And I think half the wiring runs all the way to this side of the pack, 4, 5, and 6, and half of it runs to this side, 1, 2, 3. Okay, for cells 1, 2, and 3. And so the wires appear to be yellow and brown, yellow and red. Then we have red and white, a brown, and a blue. And that's kind of one set. And then there's another strand, which I think is the same stuff, that same wiring runs to the other side. And this appears to have some of that corrugated conduit on it. I'm going to bring you guys in a bit closer. I know that this is just absolutely thrilling. I get it. But, you know, the details belong to the devil. And this is that corrugated piece I was talking about. You've all seen these. You're familiar with them. I think BMW used it for extra protection, probably from the heat at that point. They do a really good job at the splices, like at the joints where some wiring splits off. It's really smartly loomed or taped for strength. Okay, so now I'm doing the strand that is going to number 3. I think that was the pack that sits on top of 1. So I'm going to undo all this. And this might give us a clue if they're daisy chained. I think they may be daisy chained. Meaning that it's kind of like Christmas lights, where from the plug it goes to 1, from 1 it goes to 2, and from 2 it goes to 3 type of deal, you know. Pretty typical. They're not all home runs, essentially. Okay. And then they kind of wound this. It's getting to be fun now. Okay, so now what we have here is this is right here is the blue plug that goes into the master BMS, and then here we have number 2, so it goes to number 2 first, then it runs to number 3. Okay, and then it disappears back into the rest of this harness. There's a clip there. There's a tape there. So here we can see that how it hooked into. Okay, so I had some clips here along the wall of the battery pack that I undid, and they have what I call zip ties on them. I'm just going to snip those off. I have to do that in order to get the tape off. that corrugated conduit shielding plastic stuff. So I'll remove that. Okay, so we're approaching number 1 here at this point. More corrugated plastic. So this part here is interesting because this is the last one of the 1, 2, 3 strand. It's number 1, and I'm just trying to, I'm really curious to see if my theory is correct, which is no big mystery to some of you who have already done this. I just want to see for myself how this goes. Okay, so you can see there's the 2 strands coming off, and one goes to 1, 2, and 3, and the other one goes to 4, 5, and 6. We go 2, and then we go 3, and then here we're coming up on 1. I still need to. So this is interesting because it keeps going after number 1. So 2, 3, and 1 are on this strand, but then it wants to keep going. So that's interesting. One of the connectors that's taped on, and it was there to connect to the wall of the battery pack. It was a special type of clip. See better without my glasses on than with my glasses on, so that's what I'm doing here, is taking them on and off. It's also a really good way to get some adhesive on those glasses too, which are pretty new still. What I hope to do is after I have this completely taken off, is I'm going to try to lay out this harness in a nice way, maybe just on the floor, and we can all make sense out of it. Here we are just continuing on. And what it appears that after we hit the third module on this side of the pack, we have the blue wire going on, and the two yellows, the yellow and red and the yellow and brown continuing on. And again, to some of you that might be obvious what they're for. I don't remember the pinout of the connector by heart, so they may be the CAN signal. Another one of those connectors to mount the harness to the wall of the pack. Okay, now we're coming up on a branch here that splits off to go to what I can only imagine is some sort of a thermal sensor. The tube that goes to the evaporator on this side. And looking at the pack earlier, I don't see one on the other side, so that's interesting. Okay, so here it is, and I can even probably leave that plugged in. I can untangle some of it. So it appears that it wants to run, or it does run, from this sensor. It runs, you gotta love wiring, it just gets tangled. That's its job. I joke around with my friends that the job of a wiring harness is to get tangled. But you can see here, it goes to what I call the gray connector that plugs into the master BMS. And yes, I'm going to be very repetitive as I go over this, just to kind of sink it into my head of what's what. If we were to just harvest this harness as a whole and not thin it out like what I'm doing now, then we have all these extra connectors, and sometimes they wouldn't even be useful. They would just be extra clutter, if you will. So I like to take it apart. That way I know what everything does and what it is. Now, there was this plastic clip there, I undid that. So yet another plastic conduit, the corrugated stuff. This stuff kind of reminds me of the French drain in your backyard. At least in the States we have those, and of course it's much bigger. But I always think of that when I deal with these. That's quite a ways now. We are past the halfway point. Here we are. We've reached the halfway point. Going over the hump, if you will. so just got to do this side. Another one of the clips that holds the harness to the wall of the battery pack here. This may be the third one and the first one on this side. Oops. Another strand of that conduit, plastic conduit here. And a clip. This is a pretty long run here and we still haven't hit a module. Clip that holds the harness to the sidewall of the pack. Okay, I think now we have a clip, but this one's held on with a zip tie, and we're approaching number 6. Okay, I gotta cut that. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. What these clips look like. I just toss those. Take up more of that corrugated stuff. It's in sections. It's really interesting that they didn't run one long strip. It's just a bunch of smaller sections of it. But hey, who am I to question German engineers? I'm just a Polak. Okay, so we have finally reached the branch that goes to number 6. is the piece. This is section now that will veer off to number 6. Okay. And you can see why I didn't put the blue tape on here, because all that has to come off. So I put the blue tape that where I marked what number this is on the actual connector. So I just undid number 6. And I just want to kind of get my bearing here of what's going on. But it appears that number 1 here, the strand that runs from number 1, okay, all this wiring here, number 1 runs to number 6. Part of it does. The yellow, 2 yellow and 1 blue run there. So I'm wondering if I was wrong. But then there's a lot more wires that pick up from number 6 here. That's interesting. So I don't think number 6 gets its power from the 1, 2, 3 strand, because only the 2 yellow and 1 blue run to 6, and then a brown, which I think is ground, and a red and white come in from the other side. Now we have the number 4. There's a bunch of wire off of here, which I'm wondering, okay, so this has to be the other strand then. Something separated here. There's some green wires that separate at this juncture here past number 4. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit here. Okay, let's go back to number 4. So we can see there's a strand here that continues running to what will be still number 5, sat in the bottom. And then there's extra wiring that goes to the safety box. But let's go ahead and unwrap all of number 4 here. And number 4 sits on top of number 6. Okay. And I numbered these connectors because I don't know enough about CAN and enough about BMS yet to know how important it is that these wires go to the right modules, or if every time you power on the system it just learns what module's what. So I'm just keeping it factory till I know more about it. Okay, so that's number 4. And we can see the kind of daisy chain, but there is a whole lot more wires coming off of 4 than 6, because I think power goes from 4 to 6, and then it's probably coming from there. We'll find out here. So there's a clip here in the front, and there's the connector. Let's see if I can leave that connector, plug it in for a sec. Okay. Again, I'm kind of doing this bent over the thing. My back is killing me, but I want you guys to see what I'm doing. So more little strip of plastic conduit on that section, and then now we can see that, although I don't know what this is yet, but there's this green wire that runs, and I'm pretty sure this is going to run through this front plug, and it may have something to do with sensing if something is plugged in there. I'm trying to stay on point here, and I'm trying to stay, how can I say this, keep my scope of making this be all about the BMS and not any of the other stuff. I will probably make a video on that and bore you guys to death on that. Okay, on the home stretch here, just have module number 5. Okay. So I may, let's see if I can unplug anything. I know it's a mess, and I promise to unwind it. So we can see that we have a strand going to the safety box, as BMW calls it, the pre-charge circuit, and what's running here. So we have these looks like they're fine. So there's a red wire, a red and brown, and a brown, and then there's a yellow and a brown, and they're twisted. So kind of from what I've been learning, this may be a dead giveaway that this is a communication pair of wires, which is probably talking CAN bus. So I'm just going to leave this because, again, this is not the focus of this video. And then there's a second pair of wires. These both appear to be green with black stripe. They run what appears to be to the front here, perhaps. So, yeah, I think they plug in here. Anyway, that's outside the scope for now. I'm sorry, but I want to just make this about the BMS stuff. So there we have it. Thanks for watching. No, just kidding. This is a mess. This is a disaster. We have to do something about it. We have to clean this up. And okay, so at this point, I really need to do that to really get this all untangled. think. Sorry, I dropped the away. You guys can see what happened here. Oh wow, I have no idea what just happened. But it happened. Look at that. It came apart. So it actually came apart without any cutting. So let me move this battery pack. Okay, so that was a pleasant surprise. It came apart. Let me try to lay this out. Okay, so this is the junk we have left. This is the BMW 530e plug-in hybrid BMS wiring harness, thinned out, separated. I didn't have to cut one wire. Just got lucky that way. And looks like I still have some tape on here. Great. This is number 5. Let me just take this off for completeness. You know me. Doing this off camera. Here we go. I know this is boring as hell, but here we go. We're going to do this last piece. Alright, so all that for a little 2-inch, if that. Conduit that goes in the trash. Super. That should be all of it. So now what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to lay this out sort of the way it was in the battery pack if I can. So this, it's sticky on top of being a wiring harness. It's super sticky. So that's just fantastic. Outsmart this thing. So what do I have here? Okay, that's 4, 5, and 6. Good, you go over there. There's a bit of trickery going on here. I'm not sure how much of this you guys can see and how much of it is falling off the camera. I'm going the wrong way here. You guys can see this. Okay, so that is our plug. Alright, so to finish up, I have the master BMS module here, and it has that blue connector. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to plug this in. Hopefully this will work. Okay. down. I have to. So number 2, number 3, and then this is what is interesting to me, because there's sort of this double wire, and I think power, if we look back here, this runs to number 5, number 4, and number 6 over there. So at least you guys can see that there's this sort of double strand. And so what I was saying before is that from this module, there's these 2 branches. And it kind of reminds me of, like, in the old days, IBM's token ring network, where it runs all the way around. This, which I think is this twisted pair, I think that's CAN bus. Anyway, guys, there we have it. This is the BMW BMS and its wiring harness, all extracted and thinned out. My hands are sticky. The wiring harness itself is still pretty sticky.